So a lot of what we've been seeing recently in the Me Too movement, it takes place outside of the workplace. You have people who are complaining about the behavior that is being referred to their workplace. You're seeing social media posts being brought into this. What are the standards there? You know, how much governance do we have over our employees' lives when they're not in the workplace?
You bring up social media. That's the new frontier. We have a lot more control than employers realize. Because the point is, it's not where the behavior occurs or by way of what medium, be it a one-on-one interface or be it via social media. What's important is there enough of a connection to the workplace in order to trigger the liability of the employer to take action if there's a complaint that's brought to its attention? So, by way of an example, if my phone, I get a message at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you know, nothing good happens at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Although you exercise at 4 o'clock in the morning. So
some good things happen.
4:30, okay. So I pick up my phone, and there I've got from somebody I work with an Anthony Weiner photo op. I did, you know, naked from the waist down. Wow. It's not work related. It's not on work time. And let's assume the device in question was not even my work device. Does my employer have to do something about that? Well, clearly, because me and that individual, we work together. And certainly my ability to be in that person's presence has now been entirely destroyed. So if I bring that complaint into work, yes, they do have to do something about it. However, if I change that a little bit, and the picture is from my partner's friend, whom I happen to meet at a social gathering at his home. He's not a client of the firm. And I complain about that. Well, the firm has no liability there. They have no obligation to do something about it because there's no sufficient connection to the workplace. The only connection was he's my partner's friend. That's where it ends. But simply because it happens outside of the workplace, off-duty, online, is not the end of the inquiry. How much of a connection does it have to work is really what you have to focus on.
I didn't mean to jump in front of you, Jim. I was just going to say, along those same lines, with people posting their lives on social media, that's another area where it becomes tricky. So, say for example, you have someone posting to another person on their personal Facebook page comments about another colleague at the office, and they're posting to another colleague. Two men posting to each other about maybe an intern. Oh, she's so hot, or did you see how she looked today? Or maybe maybe it's in a joking manner. If that individual sees those comments, or maybe not even that individual who they're referring to, but another colleague sees those comments, that's enough of a causal connection to the employer. So even though it's taking place outside work hours on their own personal Facebook pages, they're exposing themselves because they're all working collectively, and they're referring to another individual in the office. And either that individual or another colleague is seeing these posts, and there you have the link, you have the connection, and the employer would be obligated to take further steps.
So that's a case when the employer is obligated, but what about the case where the employer isn't obligated but wants to? So that there's something that has occurred that could be embarrassing to the company, has nothing to do with the company, but you just are so offended by what happened. And I guess Kevin Spacey is the really great example. So in early 1980s, he is accused of harassing a young man. In 2017, he's fired from 2 jobs, which had nothing to do with that incident, which happened almost 40 years earlier. Is there any possible retribution? Can Spacey sue, or can that employee sue if you just don't like their behavior? It has nothing to do with their performance, has nothing to do with the workplace, but it's just an embarrassment having that person associated with your company. Can you get rid of them?
That depends on a couple things. First of all, is there an employment contract? Most of us don't operate under employment contracts, but many people do. Kevin Spacey, I'm sure, had one. And most employment contracts will have clauses in there that talk about what are the bases for termination. So if there's an employment contract, you need to look to what are the rights under the employment contract. Also, in some states, not New Jersey, surprisingly, New York happens to be one, there are what's called lawful off-duty conduct laws. So if I'm engaged in any kind of lawful activity outside of work, my employer can't take action against me for engaging in that unlawful conduct. Lawful conduct. There's some exceptions to that in most of these statutes, but that might come into play. But absent those two situations, in most circumstances, we're employees at will, which means the company can say, we don't care whether you did it or not, we are terminating because we don't want to deal with this situation. We don't like the fact that the allegations are out there. We don't like the fact that it's giving us a bad rep, be the allegations true or not. We are going to make that judgment call, and they can pull the rug out at any time they want. Now, there's some theories that people are probably going to try to advance as this goes forward, and employers jump the gun, so to speak. There's a theory that I'm a victim of sexual stereotyping. So it would be a situation where the male says, you sexually stereotyped me as a male because an accusation was made against me, and you jumped to the conclusion that I must have done it because I'm male. So it's a form of discrimination. A little difficult argument to make, but we'll see if those kind of legal claims have any traction going forward.